Lawmakers have been meeting with their respective caucuses recently to decide on their priorities and strategies for the 2024 legislative session. Joining me in the studio to talk about some of the goals of the House Republicans is the House Minority Leader Lisa Demuth. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Shannon. Good to be with you today.
A new budget and economic forecast is about a month away, but the November forecast showed a surplus in the current biennium, but a, quote, structural imbalance beginning in 26-27, the next biennium. What's your view of the state's budget and economic health right now?
I think it's important to remember that we had an almost $18 billion surplus last year that is gone. We also increased the state budget by another $10 billion with taxes and fees. And so just taking that historically and then looking at where the forecast is at, I hear the word structural imbalance. To me, that's a deficit. We're looking at an impending deficit, and that's of great concern. And I really don't believe that we have a revenue problem in Minnesota. We have high taxes. We have a spending issue within how decisions are being made in the legislature.
And so you would like to see that be addressed, or you and your colleagues will make that point repeatedly, probably through the session?
I think Minnesotans are counting on us to make that point. I've still heard, being out in my district and in other areas of the state, what happened to all that money? How come I didn't really get that back? And as we've heard now, the people that did get the $260 checks, they're going to be taxed on it too. And so I think people are really trying to understand, yes, we'll invest in the state through taxes, but how are you using our money? And we will make that point throughout session.
Even year sessions are typically devoted to the crafting of an infrastructure package. Both the House and the Senate Capital Investment Committees have been touring the state over the interim, looking at potential projects. What types of projects would House Republicans like to see in a bonding bill this session?
Knowing that we passed a historic bonding bill this last year, looking forward, and I appreciate the work that all of the capital investment committees have been doing, but knowing that we are looking at finances in the state, how they are, I think we have to be very smart with what we're doing. This will be a bipartisan bill, and it has to include things that are going to have equity across the state. Things like roads, bridges, wastewater, infrastructure things that we can really get behind. Those are the types of things we would want to see in a bill should we have a bill that comes forward.
Generally speaking, then, what are some of the priorities of the House Republicans this session? What would you like to see accomplished?
I think a couple of the things that rise to the top are the school resource officer issue. You know, that was something that was top of mind in August as kids were heading back to school. There was no fix on that, and we are still hearing about the issues that is faced. We've got schools across the state that have had a few different issues where they've removed their school resource officers, and I think it's important to remember that is not a mandate. Schools can choose to have those in their schools should they want and need that, but for them to be limited in how they're going to do their work has not been a good thing. So we're really looking for that fix, an actual fix that would make our schools, not just students but staff too, safer. The other thing we're looking at is, really no new spending. We have to be careful, as we talked about the budget earlier. No new spending. I don't think we need to do that. Do we need to reallocate or look at how we're spending? That would make the most sense. We have a tax bill fix that is going to be needed because of some errors. And so those are the things that are top of mind as we go forward.
If the legislature does not intervene, Minnesota will have a new state flag and a new state seal on Statehood Day, May 11th. House and Senate Republicans have said they will introduce legislation that will allow the public to vote on the new state emblems. Why put the issue to a statewide vote? Is that something you support?
I would support having all Minnesotans at least be able to weigh in, not on what it's going to look like, but the idea of, do we need a new state flag or new state seal? I think Minnesotans expect that. Outside of that, though, when we talk about spending, there was no fiscal note or actual study to know what is this going to cost the state to change our flags, to change our seals. We know Hennepin County alone, just an estimate of what it's going to cost them, $500,000 to start. Our counties can't afford that. You think of schools, you think of everything across the state. We're making it more expensive for cities, for counties, for everyone to do the work that they need, not including what is it actually going to cost the state to change that. That should have gone into the discussions.
Minnesota Care is a state health plan with low premiums for qualifying Minnesotans. On a recent program, House Majority Leader Jamie Long said that one of the House DFL caucus priorities for the session is passing a public option, thereby expanding Minnesota Care in Minnesota. How do Republicans view this issue?
Health care and health insurance for Minnesotans is very expensive. We know that we have reinsurance that's helped keep the cost down. We know that's looking to sunset in the next couple of years. That is very concerning. As far as a public option, we don't know the cost on that. And I would say if that's their priority, we need to start having those discussions. There were things passed last year, a study, but also the ability to implement that. The study's not even done yet. That doesn't come out till February 1st. We need to know where that's at before we start making great changes that would cost Minnesotans more. And we need to understand what it would do to accessibility and providers. There's more to it than just saying this is our priority, we want to push it through.
In 2021, then DFL Senator Carla Bigham partnered with now soon to retire Republican Representative Pat Garofalo on a bill to legalize sports betting. Minnesota remains the only state in the region that hasn't legalized sports betting, and that effort continues to garner bipartisan support. From your view, is 2024 possibly the year to legalize sports betting in Minnesota?
You know, I would say that with a full Democrat control, if they want to do it, they can. They have the votes. There is bipartisan support both for legalizing sports betting and against it. So I would say watch as the bills come through. We have to make sure that all of the interested parties, anyone affected, has a voice and has an input in any bill that would come forward. I would say watch and wait. I don't know if this is the year. That's a better question for the majority.
You've been vocal about the costs associated with the renovation and expansion of the state office building across the street, which is where the House of Representatives is housed. That renovation has already begun. We're seeing things get torn apart. It is an historic structure. So does that, at least in part, justify the price?
You know, when I look at it as a historic structure, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done anything with the building. I think changes were needed. But to expand it to that extent with a price tag of $730 million is excessive. I think it's important to also understand that during the renovation, as soon as this session is over, they're moving every single person, that office is in there, and again, part-time legislature, but they're moving staff, everyone, over to an empty office building on the campus, the Centennial Office Building. What I've asked is I've just said, could we just take an assessment of how much space we have on the complex that is being used full-time, used part-time, and then what's empty. And I think Minnesotans are asking us just to be wise with how we spend and what we do. So an expansion, doubling space at that excess is too much, given the fact that inflation, living our lives, affording everything is just harder. And I think $730 million is too much for Minnesota taxpayers.
House Minority Leader Lisa Demuth, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.